Hey, my name is Rocky, and this is part of my story. So, I grew up in a very religious, and let me clarify, religious home. Uh, my parents were independent fundamental Baptists, and so Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, it was church, Thursday night visitation. Saturday, we would do the bus ministry with my dad. And, you know, I can remember from the time I was 4 or 5 years old. I I would go to the altar every service, and you know, looking back a few days ago when Pastor Todd and I talked about this, I look back and I think, you know, why did I do that? And I remember my parents talking to the pastor at that church at the time, saying, maybe one day it'll stick, or maybe one day he'll grow up and realize what it is, and salvation will take hold. And so, looking back, I asked God, man, what was going on? And so many churches and religion and people try to scare people into heaven and into salvation. And I was scared. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to be what people were talking about and the pastor was talking about. So I was going to the altar every night or every service. And looking back now at my age, I look back and I didn't want to be like my parents. And that's sad because, my mom being a Sunday school teacher, my dad being a, bus ministry, a deacon of the church, but we would go home and it was nothing about church. It was worldly. It was, the Bibles never got open. So growing up, I didn't want to be like that. And that's sad because, the Bible says to honor your parents. But growing up, I had a different lifestyle than most people. Um, and it's kind of hard to explain because, Satan likes to twist and do different things, but I'm just going to touch a little base. You know, I didn't want to be the way my parents wanted me to be. I wanted to be a different life. And the way I was born, the things in my head, and the way Satan started with me. I mean, he started with me when I was young. And, people don't understand that when Satan knows that God's going to use you, man, he comes at you with little pieces, little bits. And he doesn't come at you with the whole chain. He comes at you with just a link here and a link there. And next thing you know, you're in bondage, you're wrapped up. And I was. And, Satan, you know, going fast forward, Satan gave me everything that this world could offer. I had money, I had horses, I had trailers, I had sponsorship, I had race cars, I had, man, you name it. And it was all the worldly spotlight, rodeo and, different things. And at the end of the day, what boiled down was I never had happiness. I never had peace. I never understood what love was. And so, you know, fast forward, have a business partner and different things. And, you know, it's one of those deals. I got into a relationship and God knew what it was going to take for me to hit rock bottom to turn to Him. And, I was in this relationship for 7 months and I probably dropped close to 30 grand on this girl. And one night, it was just over. That night we broke up, and that night she was with somebody else. But, the end result was I was crushed. I mean, God knew what it was going to take to break me. And so I went to Tennessee, was sitting up on Caves Cove for a while. And, you know, I look back now and, you know, God and I talked, and He was just like, this is what's going on, and this is what's going to have to happen. And, I'd surrendered my life to Christ when I was young, but, I gave my heart to Him, but you take it back. And I think so many people have this issue of, I want to be saved, but then I got to do things my way. And we don't know how to just let God be God in our lives. And on my way back from Case Cove, I said, okay, God, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do? And, you know, God said, let's find a church. So prior to this, September the 19th, 2021, after I broke up with, or this girl broke up with me, I was on my way to Tennessee, or actually on my way to Georgia. And I stopped at a rest area that this girl and I had stopped at and shared some intimacy with, and looked at and took pictures and things, and was sitting at a picnic table. And it was 3:30 in the morning. I'll never forget. I mean, that's my life-changing moment. You know, we've all had one. And I pulled in. I was listening to a country song on the radio. It was actually on The Highway, which is on Sirius XM. And I sat down at this picnic table, and I lost it. I said, okay, I'm done. I can't do this no more. And I literally pulled out a Kimber 45 that I carry, pulled the hammer back, put it to my head, and pulled the trigger. And nothing happened. I didn't hear the hammer go down. I didn't hear the shot go off. Nothing. And then a brief moment later, I hear, "Are you ready to get real?" And I heard it just like somebody had said it to me. And there was nobody around. It was 3:30 in the morning. And walking back to my truck, still just not knowing what to do, I get in the truck and I turn the key on. And the message was on the radio. And there was a guy talking. And the next thing I know, I hear this song, and it's been my fight song. There's a group called Seventh Time Down, and the lead singer and writer is Mikey H. And yeah, the song was By Faith. And so from that moment on in my life, September 19th, 2021, has been by faith. And, you know, I went to Case Cove. Case Cove, I said, okay, God, what are we doing? Let's find a church. And I was on Google and looked up churches close by, and here was the Gathering Church. And so that was on a Wednesday evening, and I woke up Thursday morning, and I said, okay, God, what do you want me to do? And God's like, go to the church. I'm like, God, it's Thursday. So I end up going to the church, and I ring the doorbell, and Pastor Todd comes to the door. And we sat down and talked, and he showed me the church, and some of the other pastors were working on the church, and we talked, and Pastor Weston or Brother Weston was there, and we talked, and, you know, I prayed for my ex, and I was still thinking about her and not really focused on what God was wanting to do with my life. And it was weird because that Friday, the very next day, Friday, we had Pop-Up Grill, and I met one of the guys there, and, you know, worked the Pop-Up Grill, and then coming to the church on Sunday. And, you know, fast forward 5 weeks later, you know, God's like, you know, if you want to do what I want you to do, then you've got to change your life completely. And it did. You know, I went from a rodeo queen to a gay rodeo queen to racing pro stock cars to running extreme pro stock trucks. Satan had me really confused with identity. And he had me to the point where death was the final step. And that's what Satan wants to do. He's here to seek, kill, and destroy. And he had me destroyed. I literally pulled the trigger on a gun that has never misfired. And I've owned the gun for a long time. So with that being said, God, you know, but God, there's more. And this is just the beginning of my story. It's only been 3 years. So I'm not going to sit here and limit what God's going to do. I'm in a church that serves God and serves the people in the community and loves no matter who you are. What God's called me to do, I would have never thought in a million years I'd be doing what I'm doing. But, you know, it is what it is, and it's about serving God. Um, Being able to, minister to people, witness to people, greet people, talk to people, and most of all, protect the people that I love in this church. And, a lot of people don't understand me walking around and doing the different things that I do, but every Sunday I have to say, okay, God, if this is the day, then I'm ready to give my life for the people that I love in this church. And so that's my commitment to this church, is serving the Lord, protecting the people in this church, and protecting the people that God has given me that loves me and I love them. So I love whoever you are. I love the homeless. I love the addicts. I love people like Jesus. I just want to be able to love people like Jesus does. And I'm here to put a Band-Aid on your finger or lead you to Christ or just tell you I love you and there's more. So that's what God's called me to do, is just to be a servant. And I'm a servant in this church.